Hey everybody, my name is Paul Old Man Heinrich. At least that's what some of my friends like to call me on my Facebook group, and you guys know who you are. So I'm a member of a type 1 diabetic support page, and the administrator of that page asked us to tell our stories. So that's what I'm going to do. My story is not as exciting as some of the others, not quite as an adventurous story. The diagnosis story is pretty bland, but the most important part of my story, what I feel, is what I've done with myself and my life after my diagnosis. And I feel like for new members or new people diagnosed or parents with type 1 who have young children, I hope my story can be either an inspiration or at least give you hope or some sort of positive outlook. Or even if you've had diabetes for several years and you're just looking for that motivation to keep moving and keep fighting the good fight. So my story began in my junior year of high school, near the end of the summertime. I grew up in Phoenix, went to high school in Phoenix, went to a very big high school in Phoenix. And at the end of my junior year, I met this lovely little lady from a small town called Pine Top, 3 hours from Phoenix, up in the mountains in Arizona. We finished our junior year in high school. I went up to Pine Top to visit her, and basically we started dating right away. There wasn't a few dates here, a few dates there, as we started dating right away. So that was in May. Now comes August. She's back in Pine Top, going to school, high school, to do her senior year. I'm in Phoenix doing my senior year. August time, early August, I start not feeling well. Now, I'm 6'1", and I dropped a lot of weight. Like, I was down to 135 pounds. I had a constant thirst. I just could not drink enough. I felt like I was drinking gallons of water a day. Then I also started getting dry mouth, of course, really bad calf cramps in the middle of the night that would make me up. I was peeing constantly. So I just didn't feel well. So after about a week and a half of that crap, I decided, you know what, I need to go see the doctor. So I tell my parents I don't feel well, and they said, well, you're almost 18, take yourself to the doctor. So that's what I did. The next day, I got a call, and they said, you need to go to the emergency room. We're going to have them waiting for you to get there. So I called my parents, I went to the emergency room, they met me there, and that's when this all started. I was diagnosed with type 1. My blood sugars were at 800, which I know for some of you is not that high. You've had much higher, but you know, for me, it was huge. So that's how it started. And I don't know my exact date. I don't remember because it was 24 years ago, but I know it was in August. So I just go with August 30th. That's easy for me to remember. The reason why I brought up my girlfriend earlier was because when I was in the hospital, she was worried about me, of course. She came down and sat with me, and I told her, look, this is something scary. We're young. We're not even, quite 18 yet. If you want to break up with me, if you want to leave me and pursue other people, I totally understand. No hard feelings, and we can still be friends. She held my hand, looked me in the eyes, and said, I will stay with you no matter what. Believe it or not, but it was right then and there that I knew she was going to be my wife. I don't know how I knew it. I just knew. And part of my story is that, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary last week. December 14th is our anniversary. Actually, our 21st anniversary. We just celebrated that. So she's been with me through thick and thin. So throughout since post-diagnosis, I did not take very good care of myself for two reasons. One, I think I was in denial that I didn't have it. I didn't see my doctors. My blood sugars were all over the place. I had a couple lows where I passed out and had seizures. I had highs, like I said, not going to the doctor very often. But also part of me not taking care of myself was because my wife has a bleeding disorder. And one time, 4 months to the day when our younger son was born, her lungs hemorrhaged, and we were up in Pine Top, so the small town where she grew up. We were visiting family, and her lungs started bleeding, and she couldn't breathe, and she passed out. Luckily, there was an ambulance that just happened to be driving down the road when we called. They rushed her to the hospital in Pine Top, and Pine Top flew her down to Phoenix to be in a level 1 trauma center here in Arizona, in Phoenix. She was in a coma for a month, and she's had years of health problems ever since then. Even today, even to this day, sometimes she still has some issues. But because I was in denial and because I was spending all my time taking care of her, I didn't take as good care of myself as I should. I gained a lot of weight, and my diabetes and my blood pressure, and then I was on cholesterol medicine, and it was really bad for me. So I went to the doctor one time, and the doctor said, hey, I want to put you on another medicine. And I was like, you know what? If you keep putting me on medicine, that means something's seriously wrong with me, and I need to do something about it. So I told the doctor, give me 3 months. Because when he said, I want to put you on another medicine, the first thought that came to my mind was, I'm not healthy, and how is this going to affect my wife and my children? Because I need to take care of them. So I told the doctor, give me 3 months, I'll do something about it. So I started exercising. In high school, I used to ride my bike a lot, so I started cycling again. In 3 months, my A1C was down a little bit, and the doctor said, tell you what, keep doing what you're doing, and we'll check again in another 3 months. And in 6 months' time, I had dropped my A1C a full point. I don't remember what the numbers were, but it was a full point. He took me off cholesterol medicine, and he took me off high blood pressure medicine. And ever since then, I've just kept doing what I'm doing. I lost 45 pounds, got a much more manageable weight. So the reason why I did that is motivation. I had to find my motivation in order to turn my life around. And my motivation was my wife and kids. Because if I were to die young or have my own complications, who's going to take care of me? Who's going to take care of my wife and my kids? You know, I'm the sole provider. I have to be there for them. So they were my motivation. So one of the things I want to tell you guys is you need to find your motivation, because it's important and it's what keeps you driving forward. So that's kind of how I was diagnosed and how I turned my life around, what forced me to turn my life around. But for you new people and you parents, I want you to know that you can live a great life with type 1. Do you have to take extra precautions? Yes, you have to check. You have to bring sugar with you, like a drink or Skittles or whatever you like to eat for sugar. You have to bring that with you. You have to tell people, hey, I'm going to be here if anything happens. At least you know where I am, right? So, but I want you to know that you can have a fabulous life. Since I've been diagnosed, here are the things I've done. I used to work for an airline, so I have flown all over the country in the U.S. I've gone to many different conferences, anywhere from Anaheim and going to Disneyland to New Orleans and going to Bourbon Street. I've driven all over the country to visit family and to see new sites. I've hiked around Mount St. Helens, been to Canada. I also got my balloon pilot's license, because in the U.S. you cannot get a commercial pilot's license because you can't pass a medical certificate. With hot air balloons, you don't need a medical certificate, so you can get your pilot's license. I'm fortunate enough that my parents grew up with hot air balloons. I grew up with hot air balloons. I have pictures of me in diapers playing in the Arizona desert with hot air balloons in the background. So I grew up around it. I got my pilot's license. I can fly them. What else have I done? Like I said, I got into cycling. So I've been riding and riding. Last year I did my first 100 miles, my first century. That's a huge, huge milestone for me. It's one of my cycling goals that I've been trying to reach for years. I know some of you ride much farther than that, more often, but for me, that was a huge milestone. Other things I've done, my wife has always wanted to go to Paris, so I took her to Paris. We had a conference there. We flew to Paris, stayed there for 14 days, had an amazing time. The other dream trip we've had, we've been wanting to go to Hawaii. We've been to Hawaii 4 times now. We've always wanted to go to Australia. This past August, we went to Australia. We went to Sydney, Gold Coast, and a small town called 1770 to go snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef, which I did. And those things were like on my bucket list to do. I work a full-time job. I raise my kids who are they're in college now. Neither one of them has type 1 diabetes. So I'm thankful for that. But I just want you to know that you can live a normal life and have a fun life and do that. I always tell my friends and that I meet and new people that I meet that I'm not a diabetic. I don't let my disease define me. I am a father, I'm a husband, I am a full-time, hardworking employee. I do a lot of volunteer work, so I'm a volunteer. I'm a cyclist, I'm a pilot, all of these who just happens to have diabetes, but I'm not a diabetic because I don't let my disease define me, who I am. The other thing, as I mentioned just briefly, is volunteer work. I do a lot of volunteer work, and I lead by example for my kids, because I always believe the diabetes community and the bleeding disorders community has given so much back to me that I give back to them. And we do, as a family, a couple hundred hours a year in volunteer time, because I want to show my children that volunteering is an important thing and advocacy is important. So I never ever keep quiet about my diabetes. I talk about it. If anybody wants to talk about it, I will talk. That's also therapy for me, to get it out there, get it off my chest. I don't bottle it up. So again, don't let the disease define you. Do what you want to do and live your dreams, because it's important that you do. Don't let this disease beat you down. I hope you enjoyed my story. If you have any questions, you can always private message me. And Shauna, I hope this was what you wanted. Thanks for listening.